What's up YouTube? Gucci here, coming at you with a review on Marvel's Spider-Man. As always, we'll be going over the good things about this game, the bad things about this game, and if this game is right for you. So the number one best thing about this game, hands down, is all the slow-mos. I mean, you can't have a Spider-Man game without it, right? Just kidding. But the cinematography plays a big part on how the story is told, which is one of the major focus points of this game. In this game, you get to play as multiple characters, not only Spider-Man, but you get to also play as Miles and MJ, and this really puts things into perspective. It gives more opportunity to show the personalities of these characters. Throughout the multiple missions Peter has with Dr. Octavius, we get a sense of how important he was to him, how he wasn't only just a colleague, but also a friend, how Peter takes Miles Morales in not only as Peter but also Spider-Man, knowing what Miles has gone through when losing a family member, to the relationship with MJ, finding out what went wrong between them and how they're slowly trying to build up that relationship again. And the one thing I think they really nailed was the sacrifices Peter has to make. So the second thing I really like about this game is the level and sound design. All the way from the landscapes when you're swinging around throughout the whole city during sunset or night, all the way down to the fine details of when you're walking down the street and you can pick up the newspaper or talk to people on the streets. All the landscapes within New York City you could take pictures of match real life ones. There's just so much verticality just because you could swing up and down on rooftops all the way to walking down the streets. And the sound is amazing too. It's not only sound effects, but how sound drives missions and gives you hints towards certain objectives. Most of the time it's just Peter talking out loud giving you hints. So for example, you have him saying you have to defeat a certain enemy before being able to complete this objective.
I need to clear out his men before I try the counter draw.
Or giving a hint to where a location is on a map.
I see the Statue of Liberty, so it's gotta be way south of here. Not close to the university. Probably the financial district.
To simple quality of life things like letting you know how many enemies are left.
Nice. More left.
And the final thing I really liked about this game are all the challenges, which are kind of like side missions, but gives you currency, which are the tokens. This is something the game doesn't really explain that well, but there are 6 different types of tokens which act as your currency to buy things like different suits or different abilities or gadgets. But the game gives you multiple ways to earn these tokens. So the first type of token you can earn is the research token, which I think is by far the best type of tokens to go for. Mostly because there's so many ways to get them. Technically, you could break it down to either just navigating to certain parts of the map or shooting things with your web, but they add variations to them. For example, navigating the map can be told by catching a pigeon that's flying around to different areas, or taking smog samples at different parts, or controlling your spider bot to measure data points around the park, or connecting and aligning transmission dishes, whether it just be in normal weather or with lightning strikes. The other type of research missions are shooting things with your web, and these things can be things like releasing water pressure within a tank, or releasing vent pressure within a building, or the pipes underneath the ground, to things like fixing billboard screens. The next 2 types of tokens, which are probably the easiest to get and are basically like free tokens, are the landmark tokens and the backpack tokens. And the last 3 token types are probably where people might disagree with me. And this is because all these 3 have a tiered system which determine how many tokens you get from them. So the first 2 are the base tokens and the crime tokens, which are probably my least favorite, only because to get that 3rd tier, you have to fight these enemies in a certain way. So for example, you'd have to stealth take down 4 enemies and then electrify 5 enemies. And on top of that, for the crime tokens, crimes came up randomly, so you have to wait around, either swing around the city until one pops up and you have to find it and then defeat them. And the final type of token you can get is Taskmaster's challenge tokens. And these consisted of 4 types of challenges: the bomb challenge, the drone, the combat, and the stealth. The bomb and the drone challenges were by far the best, because they challenged you as a player at one of the core fundamentals of the game, which is web swinging. and these are mostly time-based. So the bomb challenge makes you find a certain amount of bombs and destroy them, and the drone challenge makes you go through certain checkpoints before finding the drone and destroying it. The combat challenge was basically like getting base tokens, so it was kind of repetitive. And the stealth challenge was defeating all the enemies without being alerted, and this kind of resulted in you memorizing the order in which to defeat the enemies, and it was just kind of guess and check. So that kind of leads me into the bad things about this game, which is one, the stealth. Not only in Taskmaster's stealth missions, but throughout the story when you play as Miles or MJ, you have no abilities. I mean, with Miles you have this hacking ability to distract enemies, and with MJ you can throw a lure that Peter gives you, and then later on you get a stun gun which you can insta-take down an enemy. But the goal for playing as Miles and MJ was just to reach a certain location, and that's about it. The next thing I didn't like about the game is the overwhelming variety of movesets. As you progress throughout the game, you unlock more abilities through the skill tree. But through all those abilities you unlock, you have to memorize all the button inputs for them. There are moves with single inputs, there are moves with double inputs, rapid inputs, button holds, and it all changes whether you're on the ground or in the air. During my playthrough, I found 3 or 4 moves that work, memorized those, and used that all throughout the game. The problem comes when certain challenges require you to use specific moves. Alright, so the next thing on my list isn't necessarily something bad about the game, but I just thought it was just alright. And this is the combat. In group fights, I only used about 3 moves, which got me throughout the whole game. The main goal was just to build up focus to get a bunch of instant takedowns. So, throwing items and uppercuts to basic combo was a really easy way to do that. And because of that, fighting the different enemy types such as the shield guy and the sword guy or baton guy was basically the same since I could instant takedown them. I know I could have used all the different gadgets that Peter had in his inventory, and because it was a limited resource and you ran out of ammo, you had to bring up the scroll wheel, select another gadget, and then use that new one. And for me, that just broke the combat flow. Okay, so on to the boss fights. I honestly thought they were pretty simple to beat. They always had one move that they were vulnerable to, and once you do that move, whether it just be shooting with a web, or dodging, or throwing some item at them, it would stagger, and then you could go in and just punch them real quick, and rinse and repeat. There were certain variations like having to dodge in a certain direction, or timing throwing an object, but for the most part, it's the same. But, like I said before, boss battles weren't bad. The way that you flow from cinematic to fighting, moving from one area to the next to progress the story was amazing. And the final thing that was just alright about this game were the puzzles. The first type of puzzle was the spectrographs, where you had to mix and match, adding or subtracting different fragments to match a specific pattern. And the second type of puzzle was the circuit boards, where you had to lay these pathing systems to get from one point to the next. And I think these were at the perfect level where it was challenging enough to be interesting, but not too simple where it's just annoying. Alright, on to if this game is right for you. As always, we'll be using Bartle's taxonomy of player types, and this just separates players into why they play a game. Achievers play for end game goals such as high scores, maxing XP, or 100%ing a game. Socializers play for the personal aspect of the game, whether that be interacting with other players or emulating that within a game. Explorers play for discovery, and this can include things like finding Easter eggs or playing around with the system to fully understand how it works. And finally, we have the killers, who play to assert dominance. For all you achievers out there, this game is definitely meant for you. With all the suits to collect, the abilities to unlock, and all the gadgets to upgrade, there's always something to strive for. And to get all of those, you need tokens, which you get from the multitude of challenges within the game. Right when you open up the map, New York is separated to all the different districts. It clearly shows what objectives you have left, and the percentage of completion you have within each district. Also, for all the challenges, you can always strive to get the highest tier. And the best thing is that once you 100% the map, you should have mostly all the trophies done. There are a couple of hidden trophies that I had to look up and find, like greeting 10 citizens or paying respects to Uncle Ben's grave. But for the most part, you can finish all the trophies within one playthrough. So for all YouTubers, I give it a 10 out of 10. Moving on to the next best matched player type are the Socializers, which is kind of surprising. But with such an amazing story where you get to interact with so many of the characters within the world, really puts it high on my list. So with that, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Next are the Explorers. There are so many little things within the game, such as having Avengers Tower and all the suits such as the Iron Spider suit, and one of the cutscenes that made me laugh so hard.
That totally worked last time.
But not only the Easter eggs, the world was represented in multiple ways. There's Mr. Negative's world where he's trying to mind control you and convert you. There's levels that restrict how high or low you can go, represented by either poison or some radio wave. Also that Easter egg when you're at that Halloween party and you have to find those people dressed up as Spider-Man's villains but in their old school costumes. And because of that, for all you explorers, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. And finally, for all you killers, the combat was okay. Of course it was satisfying beating mobs of enemies and defeating all super villains, but that wasn't the main focus of the game. So for you killers, it's going to be a 2 out of 10. And with that, that wraps up my review for Spider-Man. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. If you agreed with me or disagreed with me, comment down below. Let me know what you think. And thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.